By the time Halloween rolled around this year, I thought I knew myself pretty well. I'm 25. I've lived in Los Angeles long enough to roll my eyes at the traffic jokes. I've been in love with the same man for 3 years, and I'd always considered myself pretty sexually open-minded in that vague, yeah, I'm chill kind of way. I thought I had a handle on what I liked and what I didn't. And then I shaved my boyfriend's legs and put him in a maid dress, and it was like someone found a hidden trapdoor in my brain and yanked it open. Evan, for context, is not the kind of guy anyone would expect to see in a maid outfit. He's 27, 6'2", built like the human version of a redwood tree. Thick shoulders, big hands, a broad chest that's usually covered in a forest of dark hair. He's got this heavy jawline and a beard that makes him look like he should be chopping wood in Montana, not working in tech in Silver Lake. When he hugs me, I disappear into him. He's also incredibly kind, emotionally literate in a way I didn't realize men could be until I met him, and completely genuinely supportive of LGBTQIA people. We go to Pride. He donates. He corrects his coworkers when they say dumb things. He'll watch queer movies with me and actually pay attention. So when the idea first popped into my head for Halloween, it felt half like a joke and half like poking a bruise I didn't know I had. We were lying on the couch in September scrolling through costume ideas on our phones, and everything just felt so expected. He suggested being a cowboy. I suggested being vampire movie characters. Then I saw this picture of a guy in a very over-the-top French-made costume, all black and white frills, stockings, heels, the works. I laughed out loud, showed it to him, and said, "You should wear this." He snorted. "Absolutely not," he said, but there was a little smile at the edge of his mouth that kept me going. "Come on," I said, halfway teasing, halfway testing. "You'd look hot." "I would look ridiculous," he replied, but he was still looking at the picture, his thumb zooming in and out like he was trying to imagine himself in it. That's when I decided to push. "Okay, but hear me out. This is like the ultimate confident move. Big, hairy Lumberjack Evan, totally secure in his masculinity, shows up in a tiny maid dress and heels. People will lose their minds, in a good way, and I hesitated because saying it out loud felt like peeling my skin off. "I really want to see you like that. Like, really." He looked at me, and I could see the calculation happening. His eyes softened the way they do when he's trying to understand something about me. "You really want this?" I nodded, suddenly shy. "Yeah, I don't know why, I just do." He sighed, then laughed, rubbing his beard. "You're lucky I'm an open-minded man, Emma. If I do it, we're making the costume together. I'm not wearing some one-size-fits-nobody plastic thing from Spirit." I practically tackled him with a hug. "Deal. Oh my God, we're going to make you the hottest maid in Los Angeles." For the next few weeks, it became this shared project. We trawled thrift stores in Echo Park and Highland Park, sifting through racks of black dresses and white aprons. I made him hold up pieces against his body while he muttered, "This is so stupid," under his breath, but he never actually refused. We found this short black skater dress with a square neckline that fit his chest surprisingly well once we let out the seams, and a frilly white apron I trimmed and resewed to sit higher on his waist. I ordered sheer black pantyhose and a garter belt online, plus a pair of black heels with a thick enough heel that he wouldn't die in them. We bought a cheap lace headband, white satin gloves, and a little feather duster that squeaked when you shook it. The closer Halloween got, the more something tight and electric coiled inside me. It wasn't just, "Oh, this will be funny." It was my stomach flipping every time I imagined his big, veiny hands in white gloves, his long legs in sheer nylon, the contrast of his body and the softness of the clothes. It felt taboo in this way that made my chest ache. I'd find myself daydreaming about it in line at Trader Joe's and then flushing like someone could read my thoughts. The day of Halloween, our apartment turned into a backstage dressing room. I'd laid everything out on the bed like a little shrine. Evan came out of the bathroom in just boxers, scratching his chest, and said, "Okay, so," shaving. I'd been joking about it for weeks, but seeing him there in the harsh afternoon light, beard thick, chest and legs covered in hair, it suddenly felt like a big deal. He was so him that way. "You don't have to," I said quickly, panic fluttering in my throat. "We can work with what you've got. Hairy Maid is also a concept." He gave me this tilted head look. "You've been talking about smooth legs for a month," he said. "If we're doing this, we're doing it right." Then he raised his eyebrows. "You want to help?" That's how I ended up kneeling on the bath mat, carefully dragging a razor up his shin while he steadied himself against the wall. The bathroom smelled like shaving cream and our eucalyptus hand soap. Little wet curls of dark hair slid down his calves into the tub. My hand shook a little as I worked because it felt so intimate and weirdly reverent, like I was revealing something that had been hiding under the surface all along. Every time I rinsed the blade, more of his skin emerged, pale, unfamiliar, almost vulnerable. "Does it feel weird?" I asked, glancing up at him. "Very," he said, but he was smiling. "Like I'm cosplaying as a dolphin." I laughed, the sound a little too high. "A very sexy dolphin," I said, and he snorted. When we were done with his legs, he surprised me by handing me the razor. "Might as well do the chest, too," he said. "Go big or go home, right?" The moment I first saw him really bare, standing there in just boxers, chest smooth, legs smooth, his beard trimmed shorter, my brain did this dizzy lurch. The big masculine outline of him was still there, shoulders and pecs and thick thighs, but the texture had changed. Softer, sleeker. It was like looking at an alternate version of him from a universe where everything had slid half a step to the left. I did his makeup at my tiny vanity, him sitting on the stool, kneecaps knocking into my thighs. I started light. Some concealer, a bit of contour to sharpen his cheekbones, neutral eyeshadow. When I brushed mascara onto his lashes and they suddenly looked ridiculously long, my breath caught. He blinked at himself in the mirror, experimenting with an exaggerated flutter, and we both cracked up. "I look different," he said slowly. "You look stunning," I said, and meant it in a way that made my throat tight. Then came the clothes. Watching him pull the pantyhose up his newly smooth legs felt almost indecent. They whispered over his skin, catching on his fingers, stretching to accommodate the muscle underneath. The dress slid over his head with a soft rustle, settling on his shoulders, skimming his hips. It was short, shorter than I remembered when I'd tried it on for tailoring, and when he straightened up, it hit mid-thigh, revealing a dangerous length of nylon-clad leg. The apron tied around his waist gave him this almost hourglass shape. I added the gloves, the headband, straightened the skirt. He wobbled a little when he stepped into the heels and then adjusted, rolling his ankles like he was learning a new language with his body. And then he turned to face the full-length mirror, and I swear, the world slowed down. He was still Evan. Same jawline, same eyes, same little scar on his eyebrow from when he'd fallen off his bike as a kid, but the frame he was in had been rewritten in soft focus. The dress hugged his chest and flared over his thighs. The pantyhose gleamed when he shifted his weight. The heels forced him to stand differently, one hip popping, shoulders drawn back. It was masculine and feminine, and something else entirely, twisted together. Something inside me just clicked. I don't know how to describe it better than that. It was like someone had quietly been rearranging my insides for years, and I finally walked into the room to see what they'd done. My face went hot, my palms sweaty. I felt this flood of attraction that was familiar and completely new at the same time. I wanted to touch him, to smooth his skirt, to see him bend, sit, pose. I wanted to show him off and also keep him entirely to myself. He caught my reflection in the mirror. "Well?" he asked, doing a little curtsy that made the hem swish. My voice came out rough. "I love it," I said. "Oh my God, Evan, you look incredible." His grin was slow and proud. "Told you I'm an excellent boyfriend," he said. "Let's go scandalize the party." At the Halloween party, he was a hit. We showed up at our friend Mark's house in Silver Lake, and there was this collective double take when people realized the hot maid was, in fact, my very bearded boyfriend in a dress. It should have been ridiculous. The kitchen was full of fake blood and cheap beer. Someone had set up a fog machine in the living room. Thriller was playing for the second time. But all I remember is the way people's eyes lit up when they saw him. "Dude, you committed," one of his friends said, doing a full head-to-toe look. "Respect." "You look amazing," one of my girlfriends breathed to me in the hallway. Like, weirdly amazing. "How are you not jumping him right now?" "Oh," I said a little too quickly. "Who says I'm not planning to?" Evan was in his element, weirdly. Once he got over the initial awkwardness of the heels, he leaned into it. He did exaggerated little curtsies when people asked for drinks. He posed for photos with one hand on his hip and the other holding the feather duster. Every time he swept past me, skirt swishing, I felt heat crawl up my neck. At one point, he half-jokingly bent over to dust a low table, and I had to physically leave the room because the sight of him, big and solid in that tiny dress, was too much. I was all over him, and not even in a subtle way. I kept finding excuses to adjust his apron, to smooth his hair, to tuck a stray strand behind his ear. We danced to some cheesy remix, my hands sliding over the satin of his skirt, his gloved fingers digging into my waist. He bent down, heels making him even taller, and murmured, "You're really into this, huh?" In my ear, his breath hot against my neck. "Yes," I said, a little too fast. "Is it that obvious?" He chuckled. "You've barely let go of me all night, babe." By the time we Ubered home, I was buzzing. The city lights blurred outside the window, reflecting off the sheen of his stockings. His hand rested on my knee, and every bump in the road made his dress ride up a little higher. When we got into the apartment, the door had barely clicked shut before I grabbed him by the apron and kissed him like I was starving. I won't go into details, but it was intense. For me, it felt different, like there was this extra layer of electricity because of how he looked, because of how transgressive it felt. Later, after, his makeup smudged and his hair a mess, he held me against his bare chest and said, half teasing, half curious, "I've never seen you like that. I should wear a dress more often if that's what it does to you." My heart stuttered. "You'd do it again?" I asked, trying to sound casual and failing. He hesitated. "I mean, for special occasions? It was fun," he said, "but it's not like my thing. I felt kind of like I was in drag, which was cool for a night, but I don't think I'd be comfortable doing it all the time." He kissed my forehead. "Why? You planning to turn me into your full-time maid?" I laughed, but it came out thin. "Something like that," I said, and he didn't catch the way my chest squeezed. In the days after Halloween, the rest of the world moved on. Christmas decorations started showing up in Target. The fake cobwebs disappeared from porches, but my brain stayed stuck in that tiny maid dress. I couldn't stop replaying it. The feeling of shaving his legs, the click of his heels on Mark's hardwood floors, the way my body had responded, this flood of want that felt specifically tied to him cross-dressing, not just him in general. I started Googling things in the weird hours of the night, phone screen lighting up the bedroom while Evan snored beside me. Women attracted to men in women's clothes? Is it normal to like when your boyfriend cross-dresses? Cross-dressing kink or orientation? The search results were a mix of academic articles, Reddit threads, and blogs. I fell down rabbit holes of people talking about girlfriends of cross-dressers and forced femme and sissies, which made me uncomfortable, like I'd walked into a party I wasn't sure I'd been invited to. Eventually, I found more grounded spaces, online communities for cross-dressers and their partners, subreddits where people talked about gender expression and clothes in this earnest, non-fetish way. I lurked for a while, reading posts from women who loved dressing their boyfriends up, who talked about the joy of sharing makeup and skirts and shopping trips, of seeing their partner's soft side manifest physically. Every time someone described doing their boyfriend's eyeliner or picking out stockings together, something in me pulsed with recognition. It wasn't just, "Oh, that's hot." It was, "I want that. I need that. I want to buy silk dresses for my partner and see them twirl. I want to paint his nails while we watch TV. I want us to have matching outfits sometimes and giggle about it in our living room." And yeah, there was a sexual component, but it felt deeper than just a kink. It felt like a core part of what I wanted from intimacy, like touch and conversation and shared silliness. The problem was, the more I leaned into that realization, the more glaring Evan's boundaries became. Because when we actually talked about it, really talked, his position was clear. A week after Halloween, over takeout Thai, I finally blurted it out. "So, about the maid thing." He looked up from his pad CU, chopsticks pausing. "Yeah?" I forced myself to meet his eyes. "I really liked it," I said. "Like, a lot. More than I expected. I think I discovered something about myself." His expression shifted to that open, listening face he has. "Okay," he said slowly. "Tell me?" The words tumbled out in a messy rush. How seeing him in that dress had flipped a switch in me. How I'd been joining online communities, reading about women who loved dressing their partners up. How the idea of us going shopping together, picking out skirts and stockings and heels for him, made my heart race in this very specific way. How it wasn't about wanting him to be someone else exactly, but about wanting this other side of him to exist more often. When I finally ran out of words, my food was cold and my hands were shaking a little. He reached across the table and squeezed my fingers. "Thank you for telling me," he said quietly. "That's a lot, I'm sure." Yeah, I said, my voice small. I know it probably sounds ridiculous. It doesn't, he said. I mean, I don't fully get it, but I believe you. And I'm glad you feel like you can tell me what you want. He hesitated, chewing his lip. I need to be honest, too. My stomach dropped. Okay. I had fun on Halloween, he said. I did. It was cool seeing people's reactions, and I liked how happy it made you, but it also felt like a costume, you know? Like something I put on and then took off. When I imagine myself day to day being in dresses and heels and makeup doesn't feel like me. It feels like I'm playing a part, and doing that sometimes, for Halloween or maybe like once in a blue moon in the bedroom, sure, I can be down for that. He squeezed my hand again, but being your full-time dress-up doll, that's not something I think I can do and still feel comfortable in my own skin. The words stung even though I'd expected them. I swallowed hard. So, like, once a year? Maybe, he said. I don't want to put a schedule on it. Just rare, occasional, special, not a regular thing. I nodded, staring at the pool of sauce on my plate. This horrible, selfish thought slid into my mind, uninvited. That's not enough. It felt like someone offering me water by the teaspoon when I just realized I was thirsty for the first time in my life. I don't want you to feel like I'm rejecting you, he added quickly. I love you. You matter more to me than what I wear. I just also have to be honest about what feels right for me. I know, I said, and I did. That was the worst part. I knew he was being fair and kind and doing exactly what I'd want him to do, honoring his own boundaries. And still, grief rose in my chest like a tide. In the weeks after that conversation, something quiet and awful started happening that I didn't want to admit. I found myself less excited by him in his regular clothes. He'd come out of the bedroom in jeans and a t-shirt, beard back to its full glory, chest hair peeking out, and my brain would do this awful before and after slideshow. Lumberjack Evan, Maid Evan. My body would react way more to the memory of the latter, and then I'd feel guilty as hell. I kept going back to the online communities, but now it wasn't just lurking. I made an account on one of the crossdresser forums using a throwaway email and a vague username. I introduced myself as a woman who loved seeing men in feminine clothes. People were welcoming, kind. Crossdressers messaged me to say how rare and wonderful it was to hear from someone like me. I started chatting with a guy in Chicago who sent me pictures of his outfits, skater skirts, tights, cute little cardigans. I'd catch myself imagining what it would feel like to help him pick a dress, to zip it up for him, to kiss him while he was wearing it. And then I'd slam my laptop shut, heart racing, because I am in a relationship. I love my boyfriend. I'm not a cheater. I'm not. Except a part of me was already cheating in my head, and that terrified me. One night, lying in bed next to Evan while he slept, his arm heavy over my waist, I stared at the ceiling and realized I was at a crossroads I didn't know how to navigate. On one hand, a man I loved deeply, who was good and kind and solid, who had done nothing wrong except be honest about what he was and wasn't comfortable with. On the other hand, this newly uncovered need inside me that was starting to feel not optional, like a core part of my sexual and romantic wiring. I wish I could wrap this up with a neat bow and a "here's what I decided, guys," but the truth is, I'm still in it. I haven't told Evan about the online communities yet, or about the late-night chats, because the conversations haven't crossed physical or explicit lines, but emotionally, they feel closer to a cliff edge than I'd like to admit. I've started drafting a message to a sex-positive therapist about all this, and then deleting it because it feels dramatic. I practice conversations with Evan in the shower, asking if there's any other way we can incorporate this into our life. Maybe not full dresses, but little things like nail polish or silky robes at home, or occasional femme nights just for us. I rehearse how I could say, I think this might be a core part of my sexuality, and I don't know what to do about that. Mostly, I'm trying to hold two truths at once without breaking. That my desires are real and valid and not something I can just shove back into a box, and that Evan's boundaries are just as real and valid, and that loving someone doesn't entitle you to their body as a canvas for your fantasies. So what am I going to do? I don't fully know yet. For now, I know I need to stop hiding in online spaces like a teenager and talk to him again. Really talk, even if it's awkward and scary. I know I need to be honest about how big this feels for me, not play it off as a quirky Halloween aftershock. I know I probably need help from someone who knows more about relationships and sexuality than Reddit does. And I know that whatever happens, this Halloween changed something fundamental in me. I can't unsee the way my heart leapt when my burly, bearded boyfriend smoothed down his maid dress and smiled at himself in the mirror. I can't unknow that silk dresses and sheer pantyhose and high heels on a man do something to me I can't fully explain. All I can do is try to navigate that without losing myself or the person I love in the process. If you're listening to this and you've had your own trapdoor moment where a costume, a conversation, a random night cracked your world open a little, just know you're not alone. It's confusing and thrilling and terrifying all at once. I'm right there with you in my little apartment in Los Angeles, staring at a pair of black heels in the back of our closet and wondering what kind of life I want and what kind of life I'm allowed to ask for.